Well, hey, race fans, how are you? My name's Rob Howden, the Road Dandy Insider, voice of the Road Dandy, but of course, as well, I do a lot of work in the karting world. I own ekartingnews.com, and I'm now, I guess, over 25 years as a motorsports journalist, both in karting and in open wheel formula car racing. I've been blessed to be able to do this for a couple of decades now. Obviously, working our way into some more podcasts. This is the 6th episode of my Book It podcast. Those of you who potentially listen to me announce races, I use the catchphrase "Book It" if you're making a pass. The concept of the Book It podcast here, I do the Road Dandy Insider as well. And that gives me a chance to talk about a lot of the drivers and ins and outs, what's going on, previews, race reports, whatever it may be on the Road Dandy presented by Cooper Tires. But there's a lot of great stories and drivers and people in the industry outside of the Road Dandy that I kind of want to touch on as well. And kind of this year, getting things underway, we talked to guys like Max Esterston. I talked to the guys from the Team USA scholarship from last year as well. Here outside of the Road Dandy Insider. So there's a lot of North Americans that are racing overseas this year. And I don't want them to go without any exposure. Now, there are some more podcasts that are coming up. Jeremy Scott, Inside Open Wheel, great podcast. There are some other podcasts that are starting to, making sure that these guys get exposure, these guys and girls. So that's what I'm going to kind of roll through here. I got a bunch of drivers running today, EuroFormula Open, British F3, British Formula 4. There's a number of drivers over there that are racing that I want to make sure we keep in the spotlight. So that's one we're going to jump on. Now, this is a perfect example. So, getting into watching some of the races online, which is awesome. You can watch so many of these races on YouTube. The EuroFormula Open Series, one that I've been watching for a number of years. A lot of good talent has come out. It's a great race car. They run some fantastic circuits as well. Well, of course, kind of getting caught up on the opening round from Portimao in Portugal, and Cameron Das, the young American driver who we saw, of course, in USF 2000, won the championship in the US F4 championship over here in 2016. He's been in Europe for the last 5 years. He ends up rolling out with Team Motopark and dominating the action. Swept all 3 races to start the season in fine style. He'll go back racing this coming weekend as well, Paul Ricard. He is joining me. I'm going to bring him in right now. Joining me from his house in London, England. Let me do this. I like that one better. There we go. Cameron, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be on the show.
That is awesome. Hey, like I always do in these, I'll dive in a bit. We'll talk about your career. We'll talk about how you started, that kind of thing. But first and foremost, you're just a week away from having that amazing launch to the season at Portimao. Are you still feeling the buzz of it? Because, dude, you roll in there in a big field, good field of cars, and you dominate the action, win all 3 races.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a complete surprise because obviously we put in as much effort as we possibly can. But even then, it's like you can never expect to just dominate like that. I mean, we still have to take every race one step at a time for the rest of the season. But yeah, it couldn't have been a better start for me.
I guess, man. There's always other ways it can go, right? You can end up in the wall, you can whatever, but when you're standing on top of the podium and you hear the national anthem 3 times, man, that's awesome. Especially, and let's add this in, you end up doing it in front of the Formula 1 guys as well because they were there.
And yeah, it was just a cherry on the top.
It's amazing. All right, let's talk about your career. I kind of want to start there. I know a lot about it, but some people don't. When did Cameron Das find out about racing? How did you do it? What was the genesis where you got into racing?
It was a bit of a different story, I think, to a lot of the other drivers. I think for me, it was at an indoor karting facility near my house in Baltimore, an electric karting facility. Nice. And it was just me and a friend of mine who we were both really into cars, had never really watched any racing of any kind. But we were just like one day, like, let's figure out who's the fastest driver of the 2 of us. And we went just to this arrive and drive place. And lo and behold, I ended up being the faster one of the 2 of us. And I put in some quick lap time. So it took the attention of the people who are working there who actually, have their own league set up. And there's a lot of like SCCA club guys who go to that place. So it garnered some attention, the lap times that I was doing. And really within like 6 months of going there for the first time, I was in a like Formula 1600 car doing some testing. And then even a few months after that, it was straight into USF 2000 and Formula 4.
That's amazing. And to be able to go to an indoor kart track like that, there's obviously a ton of indoor kart tracks around the country and around the world. I love indoor karting. It's a bunch of fun. As you know, I have ekartingnews.com, so I'm a big fan of kart racing. I know you did a little bit of outdoor karting, but not a lot, but right into cars. I think you did the Bertle Rules School. Is that what you did for your license?
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, I did try and do a couple of kart races. It was in the Yeah, I was in a tag kart. I don't know
On
that much
tag?
about karting, to be quite honest. Um,
I love it.
yeah, I did a couple of races, and for some reason, it was just I felt more. At that point, I had driven a car already,
Yeah.
and I just felt way more comfortable in a car. I also felt it was a bit safer. Like there were a few other factors. I was just like, you know what? I feel like I have the pace already in race cars. I just need to work on my racecraft. It's going to take some time, but let's just go for it.
And that's a really interesting, I think, to set up because, as most people know in motorsports, I don't care if it's Lewis Hamilton or whoever, right? Or Sebastian Vettel, whatever. They spend 4, 5, 6, 8 years in karting before they get into a car. So it's interesting where you are. You're 21 years of age now. I think you were 15 or 16 when you first started. You've only been racing for about 6 years. So it's interesting because, this is your 4th year of EuroFormula, but it's almost like you dove so much into the deep end that right now you're just starting to catch up on experience to where some of these guys are who have been karting since they were 8. Did you take that into consideration?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I really don't try to compare myself to other people unless it's like, on track in that moment, because I know my story is different. So, racecraft was the most difficult thing for me to learn, especially in Europe where the rules are a bit different than in the US. So I just basically said, I'm just going to take one overtake at a time, and eventually it'll become second nature, but it's going to happen at whatever rate it happens at. And I think now it's really all starting to click and come together for me.
And that's a mature focus. I don't think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people get too stressed on themselves, especially a lot of the karters that come in that are, top level national race winning karters. They come into whether it's USF 2000 or any of the F4 programs around the world, whatever it is, and they always want the same success that they had in karting. And you have to have that patience and maturity to make it happen. Now so you jump right in, you do the Bertel Ruth school, you end up being you did almost I think you did did you do the full year of USF 2000 or not quite?
No, I think it was like a half a season or almost 2/3 of a season, something like that. Yeah.
And then you also did the USF4 program, and you end up getting a ton of wins there. You win the championship right out of the gate. Tell me a little bit about that year in USF, rather USF and then F4.
Yeah, I think so. The season started off with USF, and I think the first race I joined at was Barber, and I was so out of my element. Like, I'd done a few races, obviously in Bertel Rouge before that, but the level was just, it was unbelievable. That first race in USF, and I think I might have taken a couple people out those first 2 races, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I mean, at that point, I was almost like, maybe diving in the deep end is not the right way to go. But, I kind of stuck with it for a few more races, and it started to become not second nature, but it was getting easier. Understood. And then by the time the F4 season started, which I think started kind of late summer, quite a bit later than the USF, I was a lot more natural with it all. And that yielded the first championship of my career.
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember when you won that title, and that's fantastic for you. Now, so here's the thing: from there, a lot of drivers may have stayed here in the U.S., right? They may have they may have moved to USF 2000 or whatever it may be. You make the decision to then go to Europe. What was it? What was the decision? Did you have some advisors who were saying, "Hey, listen, maybe a good idea for you to go to Europe next year"? What are your thoughts there?
Well, one of the things was Formula One was one of my first I actually started racing before I had even started watching racing. And the first thing that I started watching when I did start getting into it was Formula One. So I think it was it just clicked with me like straight away. And also I'd heard more of the names that are associated with Formula One, like Schumacher and Hamilton. So it was a bit more familiar to me, even though IndyCar was closer at that time.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
And yeah, we knew some people who were doing British F3 at the time. And they were describing, the amount of track time and also the rain and things that you don't get as much practice in the US typically. Okay. So it just seemed like a great platform for learning in British F3. Yeah, and you ran British F3, and I think you ran EuroFormula Open that year as well, a little bit. So did you actually move over there? Or were you still staying at home, or how did you approach that first year in Europe? No, I moved over there. I was 16. My mom moved with me for the first couple of weeks, but I felt like I could live on my own just fine, and I didn't feel like our whole family had to be kind of spread across the world for me just racing. So she ended up going back home, and I've been living here ever since. Man, that's it's such a great story. So now you've been there for 4 years, British F3, like you said, EuroFormula as well. You last year dabbled in the FIA F3 program.
and EuroFormula as well. Oh, let's just capsulize those 3 or 4 years there. Was it just all about learning for you, and was half of it maybe just learning the tracks and being there and kind of being assimilated into the community?
I'd say the priority in the beginning was the racecraft, which was the British F3 and like the first kind of year of EuroFormula. It was just getting overtakes done and not worrying about anything else really. And then sort of more recently, it's about precision, which is the higher up you go, it's the precision that actually makes the difference. I'm starting to find.
Yeah.
So EuroFormula is a great championship for that, because the Dallara F320 is it's a weapon of a car, and it's incredibly sensitive to everything the driver does, and it can make, quite honestly, seconds of lap time difference.
Wow.
in just small inputs with your feet and your hands. So it's a great tool for learning. And then I did FIF3. It was kind of a last minute decision, but
Yeah.
You run on the Pirelli tires, which behave quite differently to a lot of other tire manufacturers. And I think they do that by design to make the Formula One races interesting. But I needed to know what that felt like so that I could prepare for it adequately for, the following levels after that. So
yeah, I hear you. That makes sense.
There was a reason for everything I did, and it wasn't necessarily the typical reason that people will go to championships, but I definitely felt like I've learned everything or I've learned something from everything that I've done.
Let's grab a little shot here. This is you winning the F4 US Championship. Again, tremendous season, like you said. This is the hot rod for this year, though. Cameron, you're running the EuroFormula Open again this year, your 4th year in the series. You mentioned precision and how you have to approach it. How much different are you as a race car driver now from that first year of EuroFormula to starting this 4th year right now? Because I have to believe that just hearing you talk about it, that you have such a more understanding, a grasp of what it takes to make that car go fast.
I mean, yeah, it's totally different. I mean, the first year of EuroFormula was basically my 2nd year of racing at that point, or maybe almost 3rd year of racing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the level of my skill was totally different back then. And also the championship was different. It was a different car as well. So I've learned a lot of skills.
I think your earbuds might be out of power or something like that. I've lost you.
Oh.
Do you have regular earphones we can plug into?
Can you still hear me?
I hear you again. You can keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Cool.
We're good. Maybe just a little bit of trouble. So, yeah, continue.
Yeah, I think that the championships.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. I think I'm a different driver from that point. I mean, I was such a rookie really at that point, and all of the different aspects of racing. And then on top of that, we had a different car in that series at that time. It was the old F312 chassis. And then also, I think the quality of the series was different, because now we have top level teams like Motopark involved with the series, and Van Amersfoort Racing, and a bunch of other ones that are absolutely they were doing amazing things in FIF3 a few years ago in the old car. So it's just it's more competitive all around.
Well, and here's the thing. You had some wins. Obviously, you had that fantastic season in USF4, right? So you win a bunch of races there. You get used to winning, but you're so new to it. It was the first year for the series, first year for everybody with the car. You end up moving to Europe and really throwing yourself in the deep end, like we said. And really, your learning curve is still like this. And you're probably still there, because it just blows me away that because you started later, didn't get the karting experience, that you really are kind of just really early still in your journey in terms of learning how to drive. So you roll into this year, and obviously you're a different guy. I always think there's that off season where every driver gets to kind of reset. Like, you're so much different than you were the year before, right? And that off season gives you some chances to test and to learn. You end up winning all 3 races at Portimao. Let's talk emotional side of it here right now. You end up standing on the podium, and I want to say for the first time in in this series, I think since Colton Herta, I think was the last time they played the national anthem of the U.S. As a race winner. You win all 3 races. Tell me a bit about the emotions, getting out of the car, cool down lap kind of thing, and then standing on top of the podium.
Yeah, on the first race, it was just basically trying to make 0 mistakes. Like, I mean,
right.
Like the track limits is a big topic there. So every single lap, I'm like, being super conservative, not conservative, but, being really precise about everything. And then even on the in lap, I was like, or the last couple of laps, I was checking for red flags, yellow flags. Am I missing something here? Like, I was trying to be very, like, let's just bag this win and be done with it. But I think it really hit me when I was on the podium and the American anthem started playing. And I honestly, it just took me by surprise because I hadn't heard it in Europe for so long. But I felt incredibly proud, and I had, sheer goosebumps all over my body. So it was a really cool experience. Yeah.
Good for you. All right, so let's talk. Let's kind of aim to the future now a little bit. We'll go short future here. This coming weekend, you go back to another race for the EuroFormula Open, Paul Ricard circuit, a challenging one for sure. How much experience do you have at Paul Ricard, and how much more confidence do you have going into this particular weekend? Maybe more than you had before the opener in Portugal.
So I've been to Paul Ricard a couple of times. I think we raced there last year and the year before that. So I have some experience there. It's a super challenging track. It's very technical. But I think I might have a bit of an advantage there, having been there before. In Portimao, that was actually my first time at the track. And even it was all a bit last minute with joining the series and everything. So I hadn't even driven or seen it on a simulator until about a week before the first round. So I'd say that was probably going to be the most difficult race of the season, at least on paper. So I think my confidence is quite high for Paul Ricard.
Oh, that's nice. You get that one away. Yeah, the one that's going to be the toughest for you, you're able to get through with 3 wins. So you probably feel pretty good going to Paul Ricard. You mentioned simulators. Before I ask you to give me some of your long-term goals, are you an iRacing guy? Are you a simulator guy? Do you spend a lot of time on the sim on any of those kind of platforms?
I do, yeah. I mean, just for racing and having fun, I definitely use iRacing the most. A Set of Course is another good one. And then Motopark is really heavy on the simulator as well. So they have 2 sims at their factory, but with travel and everything, it's not as often that I get to go there. So they've installed everything that they use at their workshop on my simulator, and we basically do it remote, multiple times per week, especially coming up to race weekend. So I was actually doing that this morning with my engineer, and we have some more tomorrow morning.
That's awesome. I think that's fantastic. All right, let's look long term. Cameron Dass, where does he want to go? What's the ultimate goal? Is it Formula One?
It's Formula One. Yeah, I mean, that's the top goal for me. IndyCar is also an amazing option if I was able to get there. So yeah, next year I think we're looking to continue down that Formula One path, and I think the next step is probably going to be Formula 2, provided that I learn everything that I need to learn to be ready for that this year. But I think we're on track to doing that.
So let's keep going for this year. What is there any particular racetracks later on this year that you're really looking forward to? Like, is there one you're like, man, I really can't wait to get there?
Spa's always on my list. I mean, it's my favorite track in the world at this point. And there's just so few tracks where it's fun for driving, for qualifying, and it's fun for racing. I mean, it's just it's the perfect track, honestly.
I love it. Folks, if you want to follow along, you can go to, I think it's EuroFormula.net. That's the website, and they stream all their live races as well. I got a chance to watch, as I said, Cameron's first weekend at Portimao. Got a chance to watch all those races, and of course, Paul Ricard coming this weekend. Obviously, Cameron, we always want to get fans to follow you on social media as well. Give me your accounts on all the social media platforms.
So the best place to follow me would be Cameron Dass on Instagram. And then my YouTube channel, I actually just posted a video where I recapped my entire Portimao weekend and kind of went through the overtakes and stuff. So that's Cameron Dass Racing on YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll grab that link. I'll put it down in the description below. So make sure you do that.
Awesome.
Those of you watching right now, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to my channel here. We'll check in with Cameron again later on this year, because obviously we'll continue to watch what he does. We have a lot of other North Americans I want to get on the show as well, but we'll watch Cameron, and later in the year we'll bring him back on to get an update. But Cameron, listen, I know it's later over there in London. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
There he is, folks. I'll drop Cameron out here. Fantastic American driver. And it's such an interesting story, right? Because normally when I do these shows, it's all about talking about the karting, the years of karting, 6, 7, 8 years. They've been part of a Team USA and Rotax Pro Racing or ROC or IAME, whatever it may be. Cameron, of course, didn't have that time. So this is really, he's still developing, which is so wild that he's 21 years of age, 3 wins at Portimao to start off the EuroFormula Open series. His 4th year in the series, but really you think about it, it's only his 6th year in race cars, which to me absolutely blows me away. So excited to have him on, excited to watch what he's going to be able to do for the rest of the season. Make sure you follow him on social media. Make sure to check out that link below. I'll put the link to his YouTube channel in the comments below, in the details below, so you can follow him as well. But again, one of the great young American drivers over in Europe racing this year, trying to win a scholarship, trying to win a championship, and potentially if all goes well, get into F2 in 2022. Again, big thank you to Cameron for joining. My name is Rob Howden. Book it.